All right. Great. Well, thank you everyone, and welcome to our career readiness inventory workshop. This is going to be a little bit more of an info session, so I encourage you throughout today's presentation to throw any questions that you have into the chat, or feel free to raise your hand and come off of mute. There will also be time at the end of the presentation or slides that I'm going to walk you through for us to open up any questions from the group as well. But really, the purpose of today's session is to walk you through what is the ASU Career Readiness Inventory, why are we utilizing it within student employment, and talk about the specific process that your students will be following to complete the inventory, and what you all as supervisors of student employees need to know about the Career Readiness Inventory so that you can support your students in completing it, and how to talk about the inventory with them, and use it to help you work towards those three shared outcomes that we have for student employment here at ASU. So, what is the Career Readiness Inventory? How will you and your students use it? The Career Readiness Inventory is an opportunity for your working learners to take inventory of their current proficiency level with each of the 7 NACE career competencies in mind. It is ultimately a reflection tool. It allows students to reflect on their experiences, allows them to learn more about their strengths and areas for growth before entering the workforce. Upon completing the Career Readiness Inventory, they will receive a report that summarizes their scores, how they are working towards each of those career competencies, how they're working towards each of the dimensions within the career competencies. And it's a great tool for them to conceptualize how they are making progress with those competencies in mind. Where are some areas of strength? Where are there some areas that they could use some additional development or improvement within? What this is going to do is it's going to have the students assess their current level of understanding and progress, again, towards each of the 7 NACE competencies. It allows them to reflect on their experiences. It's going to give them a breakdown of their skill level, which again helps them conceptualize how they're working towards and making progress in each of those competency areas. And then for you as supervisors, this is a great tool to put some context around those NACE competencies, something measurable that you can use in conversations with your working learners. There's opportunity for them to add you all as observers so that you can take the inventory from your perspective.
What do you
This
mean?
is a great way to have
For what?
conversations with them
No.
around
Sorry.
around how they are working towards those competencies. Where do you want to see them further develop? What are some opportunities for projects or tasks that you can engage them in within student employment that will allow them to further develop in specific areas? So as I've mentioned, the Career Readiness Inventory uses the National Association of Colleges and Employers Career Readiness Core Competencies. If you are not familiar with NACE or what those competencies are, there are 7 that we recognize and use here at ASU. And these are a set of competencies that are reviewed on a regular basis by hundreds of employers across nonprofit, corporate, and government sectors to ensure that our students are building the in-demand skills that employers are looking for, no matter what industry they end up pursuing. As of recent studies, critical thinking, sorry, I just blinked for a second, is the most sought after skill that employers are looking for from students who are entering the workforce as young professionals. It was previously communication, and I know that NACE currently is doing a review of the competencies to ensure that things like AI and using AI responsibly, how AI is used in each of these different areas, is incorporated into the competencies as well. So it is reviewed and updated regularly with collaboration with many different employers. This is just some examples of some sample behaviors that are associated with each of the competencies. This is something that students will be able to see when they are taking the inventory. So we're not just saying, score yourself on a scale of 1 to 4 in regards to career and self-development. They do have some context around what is career and self-development, how might I actually be displaying this behavior or utilizing this competency in the experiences I'm participating in. And again, just the last couple here. So as your students are going to be taking the career readiness inventory, all students are going to be receiving a link to complete the career readiness inventory starting next week. And we have a lot of tools and resources that can help them better prepare. They've been receiving emails. Last week, they'll receive another email this week with just some heads up of like, hey, you're going to get this email from Work Plus next week with a link to complete the career readiness inventory. Here's what it is, here's why you should use it, here's the benefits to you, and then a resource that they can use to help them prepare, get a better understanding of those NACE competencies, get a better understanding of how to use the career readiness inventory is through the Work Plus pathway. This is a Canvas course, self-paced Canvas course that your working learners, your student employees have the option to enroll in. That again provides them with some additional context and preparation to properly or effectively complete that career readiness inventory. I'm happy to share the link to the pathway. It's a self-enroll Canvas course. I'm happy to share that in the chat at the end of the presentation. But it's also accessible through the Work Plus website under the Student Employee Hub. They can access that link there. And it's being linked in the emails that they're receiving as well. So what do you all need to know in regards to the process for the career readiness inventory? Like I mentioned, all student employees are going to receive an email from Work Plus on October 22nd with a link to complete the career readiness inventory. At that time, they can take the inventory. It's, at their own pace. They can come back and complete it later. They could take it multiple times, but we'll officially kick off and launch October 22nd. Students will also have the option to add someone like their supervisor, could be an advisor, mentor, faculty, whoever maybe has some sort of perspective in regards to their experience that they want to add as an observer to complete the inventory from their perspective as well. If your student chooses to add you as an observer, you will receive an email from Suitable that will show you the student's name of who added you as the observer and a link to complete the career readiness inventory as an observer on their behalf. Supervisors will use that evaluation report and the report that they receive with a breakdown of both their scores and their student scores to hopefully have conversations with their working learners around their strengths, again, areas of growth, and tasks, activities, and projects that they can use to help their students level up or gain more experience in some areas that they might need some additional development. So this is what it will look like. We are using a platform called Suitable. Suitable is not who the students will receive an email from. It will come directly from Work Plus here at ASU. But you all as observers will receive an email from Suitable if your student adds you as the observer. When they log in, the link is going to take them directly to the career readiness inventory. A really cool feature that we have set up is that this is all single sign-on. So all your student needs is their ASU Right login information, and they will be able to log in and access the career readiness inventory and take the assessment. The inventory starts off with just some instructions, as well as a breakdown of the scores and the levels that they'll be rating themselves on. So there are 4 levels that they can select for each competency, as well as each dimension within each competency. The first one being emerging knowledge, followed by understanding, early application, and advanced application. This just shows you a little bit bigger picture what that looks like. So emerging knowledge, this is, base level. They have an awareness of this behavior, but they don't really fully understand it, or maybe they don't feel like they are currently utilizing or having the opportunity to develop that particular competency in the experience that they're participating in. They understand that they need to develop this competency or behavior, but again, they're still at those early stages of actually using the behavior or the competency in their experience, whether that's student employment or an internship or club or organization, whatever they are choosing to use as the framework or perspective that they approach the inventory with. And then early application, they're sometimes applying the behavior. It's not very often. They recognize that they still need to develop that particular behavior. And then finally, advanced application. They're consistent. This behavior is consistent and integrated into their workplace of behaviors. They'll also have the option to select NA. So they've not yet learned or applied the dimension. They don't have enough information to self-assess. So the biggest thing that we want students as well as supervisors to understand when taking the career readiness inventory, and for students when they're assessing themselves, as well as you as supervisors when you're assessing your student employees, is that there is no bad score. This is on a Likert scale, that scale of 1 to 4. It's a progressive scale. This is meant to be a learning tool and to help students and supervisors better understand where the student is currently at, where they can improve before, again, entering the workforce. So if a student is receiving consistent 2s and a few 3s, that's great. That means that they hopefully were answering the inventory honestly, and they recognize that they still have opportunities to grow. They are demonstrating and understanding that behavior, as well as they recognize that sometimes they are applying the behavior, but there are more opportunities for them to do it more consistently and regularly. Students should also understand that when they are taking this inventory, this is not going to affect their work or employment in any way. This is really just meant to be a reflection tool, something that they can use to, again, put some structure and a framework around the competencies that they are developing through an experience like student employment. This just shows you a little bit more detail of once they log in, they start the inventory. This is a breakdown of what they will see when they get into answering questions around each of the competencies. So at the top of the page, it will give you the competency as well as a definition of what that looks like, and then how they are progressing towards each of the dimensions within that competency. So there's about 3 to 4 dimensions per each competency. It shouldn't take students more than, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes to complete if they are, spending time and not rushing through it or just clicking a score to get to the next page. They will also have access through their dashboard, which is, again, housed through a platform called Suitable. So they will take the assessment, the link that they'll receive will take them directly to completing the inventory, but then they'll also have access to a dashboard where they can assign you all supervisors as an observer. They have the option to add multiple people as observers. So again, if they're taking this from the perspective of student employment, maybe they'll add you as a supervisor. Maybe they take the inventory again and they want their academic advisor or their career advisor to take it from their perspective of other types of experiences or activities they're engaging in. There's also a task, and this is not required, but it's certainly encouraged to both your student as well as to you as supervisors to meet with the person that they added as their observer to have a debrief and reflection conversation around both the scores that they chose to self-assess themselves with, and also to discuss the scores that you may have chosen from the observer perspective. This is where they can add notes. This is where they can kind of summarize how that conversation is going. Maybe they add in goals for the next time that they take it, or the things that they want to start improving upon or engaging in that next semester. So, working learners, like I've mentioned, will receive an email from workplus@asu.edu that will go out on October 22nd. They will follow that link and it will take them to complete the career readiness inventory. And again, they'll have the option to add you as an observer. If they add you as an observer, this is an example of the email that you will receive. So it will come, like I mentioned, from Suitable, so support@suitable.co, and it will list the name of the student who added you as the observer with a link to complete the assessment on their behalf. This is an overview of what that report will look like. So once they complete the inventory and once you complete the inventory as the observer, they will get a summary report that they can access through their dashboard that gives them a overall career readiness score, both from your scores as well as their own. And then as they scroll through, they will be able to see a breakdown of their scores and the dimensions within each of the competencies. So this is the overall average score, and then going more in depth based off of the particular dimension. One thing to note here is as your students complete the inventory, as you complete the inventory as the observer and you're moving into those coaching conversations, you might find that some of your students are scoring themselves really high or really low in some area, and that your scores are wildly different. So we have seen that quite a bit with some tests that we've done with the career readiness inventory, even from a past tool that we used to use a couple years ago. That just shows that sometimes students are maybe selling themselves short, or again, maybe they rush through the inventory. So it's a great opportunity for you to take a look at this report and maybe have a conversation around, did you answer this honestly? Or why do you think that you scored yourself so low in this area when I'm actually seeing you do really well in this area? So just some things to keep in mind as you are reviewing the report. Like I mentioned, we strongly encourage both you and the students to have a coaching conversation around that report and the scores that you both chose. So, some best practices around facilitating and having coaching conversations with the career readiness inventory. Your students will need to share their link to the report in order for you to review. When you complete the inventory, you will receive a link that will allow you to download a CSV or Excel file with a summary of the scores that you chose, but that will not show the scores that your student gave themselves. They will have to access that through their dashboard, through that Suitable dashboard, and they have the ability to share the link with you. We recommend scheduling a time to meet and discuss the inventory with your working learners. So maybe that is before you take the inventory, you're like, hey, I'm planning on taking it on Friday. Let's schedule some time to debrief and kind of reflect on our scores on Monday. You put that time on their calendar. I'm also going to share a supervisor debrief guide, which has some guiding questions and conversation prompts that you can use, again, to reflect on responses and scores that were provided from that inventory. And then try to identify areas for growth and determine projects, tasks, and opportunities for your learners to engage and grow in certain areas. So again, this is really a tool to reflect on their experiences and put some structure around how you ask them to implement feedback that you're giving them. This is going to help you further develop your communication skills, your written communication skills. This is going to help you further develop your critical thinking skills. And then maybe at the end of the semester, you can use this again to reflect on how they actually implemented that feedback and the growth that they've had throughout the semester, or whatever time you have given them to kind of implement the feedback that you're giving them. So again, from the dashboard, this is where students can add their observer, and then maybe they use this space to take notes from that reflection and debrief conversation that you have with them around the inventory. And this is just a little bit more detail of what that looks like. Great. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. And I'm going to switch over to the dashboard just so you can actually see a demo of what the report looks like and what students will see when they log in to Suitable. All right, so here is just again what the student will see. Complete your fall 2025 self-assessment. If they want to assign observer, all that they need to know is your first and last name and the email address. I recommend that they add your ASU right email address as well. And then they also have the ability to specify what their relationship is to their observer. So they might choose their supervisor or manager, and then they can submit that, and that's how you will receive that link to complete the assessment. This is where they will go to complete that self-assessment, gives them some instructions, a breakdown of those of the scale that they'll be using to assess themselves, and again, shows them the competency as well as the definition, and then the dimensions associated with each. So they can choose their skill level for each. I'm going to skip forward just a couple so that you can see what other questions they will be asked. So then once they complete the assessment for the career competencies, they're just going to be asked to provide a description of the experience that they're using to reflect on through this assessment. So what stage are they at in their experience? So they could be at the beginning of their student employment. They've just been hired. You want to use this as a way to kind of set the stage and tone for what you want them to learn and develop throughout their student employment experience. Maybe it's in the middle of their experience. You know, we're entering October. Maybe you have some students who you hired in the spring semester who returned for the fall, and now you want to kind of use this opportunity to reflect on how they've progressed or what sort of areas are their strengths from the time that you hired them to now. Or post-assessment. So maybe this is something that you have them take at the end. They're about to graduate. Here's how I can kind of structure some feedback and evaluate your work during your time here as you get ready to graduate and again enter that workforce. So they can also, if they were to take this again specifically for a class or with faculty, they have the ability to specify, you know, the course ID or what type of learning opportunity this is. So realistically, they might put, you know, just student employment here. And then they can also specify here, so a few examples of where they might, what other experiences they might use this inventory as a reflection tool for. This is really just for us to kind of gather data. If the opportunity is paid, was it for credit? How many hours per week are they working? How many hours per week are they participating in experiential learning opportunity? And then that's when they will submit it. And then I will switch over to the report. So they've completed their inventory. You have completed it as the observer. They now have access to their report. Again, average scores are listed at the top, who they added as their supervisor, their name, email address, what type of experience it was, when the observation was completed. And they can click through the report to see a more in-depth breakdown of their scores in each area. When your students receive access to this report, and if you want them to share the report with you so that you can have that coaching and debrief conversation with them, they just need to click this link, copies it, and then they can send it to you so that you can access the report breakdown as well. This is just an example of what it will look like if they don't add an observer. So when they complete their report, they will just see their score. That's okay. They don't have to add an observer. We certainly recommend and encourage them to. But if they just want to use this for their own purposes, then they can go ahead and access the report or take the assessment that they use for themselves internally. As I mentioned, we have a supervisor debrief guide. This has, instructions of how the student can access their career readiness report because it is something that the student will access and not the supervisor. So if you need to give instruction to your student on how to access the report, this resource gives you an overview of how to do so. And then this also goes in depth of how to review the report. What are some things that you should be keeping an eye out for? Next steps. So tips for kind of framing this conversation. How do they prefer to receive feedback? Recommendations on scheduling that one-on-one or how to prepare for that conversation where you do reflect and debrief around their report, as well as some coaching prompts. So some questions to consider or incorporate into that conversation that you have with the students, as well as some additional resources that can support you in continuing to have these developmental conversations around the career readiness inventory and the NACE competencies. The last thing I want to highlight, and it just actually refreshed or logged me out, but give me 1 second. We have a Workday training course for our supervisors as well. So let me grab the link for that. Give me 1 second. Apologies. So if you don't want to go back and watch this video and you just want to get a refresher on how to use the career readiness inventory or a more in-depth overview of the NACE career competencies, you will have the ability to access that training and onboarding through Workday. And here's what that will look like. So you'll just launch the content. Wow, I thought I was prepared, and then Workday really threw me off. But here's kind of what you can expect from that evaluator onboarding and the modules that it goes through. So what is the career readiness inventory, student outcomes that we have for student employment here at ASU, an introduction to NACE and the competencies, how to score your students, breakdown of the skill levels, and then how to read the report. So again, this is available to you through Workday. If you ever want to access it, it is self-enroll. It is not required for you to complete, but it is there as an additional resource so you have the ability to access it at any time if you need to give guidance to your students on how to take the inventory, or if you yourself just need a refresher, like I mentioned. Oh, it opened in a new window. Okay, of course. I'm going to just share the link in the chat with you all. All right. Well, that is really all that I have in terms of what you need to know for the career readiness inventory. Initially next week, when the email goes out, the only thing that we ask of you is just be available to answer questions for your students if they come to you and they ask, why am I getting this email? What do I need to do? You have some context around what is the career readiness inventory and how it's a benefit to your students and to you as supervisors and having more of those career conversations with them. Um, Other than that, it is really up to you in terms of if you want them to add you as an observer. Like I mentioned, we strongly encourage it, but we find that it's most useful if they're adding you as an observer that you're also prioritizing having that debrief conversation and reflection conversation. It's not going to be quite as helpful if they just see your scores and they don't understand why you gave them that score or why the scores are so different between you and them, or what they need to do to get a higher score from you in a certain area. So that is just something we definitely recommend and encourage if you are going to have your student add you as an observer. But I will pause here and open it up for any questions or comments about the inventory. Well, um, yes, it is something that they can download and keep. So yeah, great question, Jennifer. The platform that we're using is Suitable. They will have access to a dashboard, so they can log in and access that information at any time. They can go back in a month from now and take the inventory again and get a new report with their new scores. They will also average their scores over time if they take it multiple times. So if any of you have ever worked with WorkPlus in the past, we previously were using a platform called Skills Survey. They unfortunately did sunset. We've kind of been testing out new products over the last year or so, and we find that this platform through Suitable is very user friendly, especially for the students. They can take it through their phone as well. So they have an app that they can download, still single sign on for ASU. So if they prefer to take the inventory from their phone or through the app, they have the ability to do that as well as access the report through the app as well. Any other questions? I'm going to also put the link to that supervisor debrief guide into the chat. But that's also accessible through the WorkPlus website under the Supervisor Hub. And then at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned the WorkPlus pathway, which has modules for students to go through that onboarding if they prefer before taking the inventory. They can access that pathway through the Student Employee Hub on the WorkPlus website as well. I guess the last thing I will say is that, since this is a new rollout and we're sending it to all student employees, I would love for everything to run smoothly, but I certainly anticipate some hiccups along the way. So if you do have any issues, or if your students run into any issues, or if you just have any feedback for us on the inventory as a whole, I welcome you to reach out to me, send me an email, send me a Slack. Happy to kind of troubleshoot or share that with our the product developer and also take the feedback for long-term improvements as well.